Welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual for right now, I'm here with Jason.
Hey, everyone.
Happy Halloween, my dude.
Happy Halloween.
We're getting closer.
It's the holy month.
The holy month. We love it. Celebrating horror films all month long.
Disturbing, extreme horror films.
Yes, that's what we've latched onto this year. A far cry from last year where we kind of just went for fun Halloween-type films.
Yeah, those were good times.
Those are good times. These are good times, too.
They are. They are.
Today, we are going to be talking about the infamous Guinea Pig series from Japan, because we checked out Mermaid and the Manhole from 1988, which may or may not be the 4th, 5th, or 6th entry in this franchise, depending on how you want to cut it. And we will get into all of that.
There's lots of cutting.
There's a lot of cutting. But first, we're going to do all our usual stuff, talk about what we've been watching. I don't have a shout-out this time. My bad. I'll try to take care of it next time.
God, you suck.
Yeah. A little peek behind the curtains. It's been kind of crazy. We've got some vacations going on that's forced us to have to
record a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
Yes. So, haven't had my usual time to dig around and prep and find cool stuff. So, what have you been watching, my friend?
Well, I am going to break the rules you guys so flagrantly do. I'm going to talk about a TV show.
I guess you're just earned one, I guess. Yeah. As long as it's not Rings of Power.
It is not Rings of Power, okay. Which I do like Rings of Power. I'm going to talk about For All Mankind, which is on Apple TV.
I assumed you would talk about Andor.
Well, I mean, I could, because I did watch Andor.
I figured.
I like it so far, too.
You hadn't said anything yet, so I was wondering.
Well, I know you're also not interested at all in it.
Yeah.
Because...
I mean, spoilers, he dies.
Eventually, sure.
All right, go on.
But For All Mankind is kind of an alternate history television show. It starts in '69, and instead of the USA making it to the moon, the Soviets do first.
Oh.
So then everything just sort of, it's like a multiverse. It's like another what if type situation.
Like Man in the High Castle.
Yeah, exactly. But it's produced by Ronald D. Moore, who people will know from Star Trek, and of course Battlestar Galactica. So he's back to sci-fi where I think he belongs. And it's really good. Just like 10 episodes per season. There's 3 seasons so far.
Oh, so this has already been going for
a while. It's been on for a while. And some of my friends have been saying, oh, you got to watch this. You got to watch this. And I finally did. And yeah, it's great. So I highly recommend it. If you have Apple TV, get it, watch it.
Apple TV?
Yeah, Apple TV's good. I mean, it's not great, but it's good. It's got For All Mankind. That's enough. At least get it when All Mankind's playing and then cancel it and just get it back again.
If Michael were here, he would say that you can't watch it for free.
He would. He would point that out. And then I would remind him that nothing is free. Nothing is free.
There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
We want to keep our sci-fi references going.
Law of conservation or something. So if you dig science fiction, and it's fairly, hard SF. It's like realistic in quotation marks. So it's, it's pretty gripping. The characters are pretty good for the most part, and I'm a sucker for any of those stories where, especially if it's in space where a disaster happens and they have to find some way to fix it. I fucking love that shit. I eat that shit up all day long.
All right, cool.
Yeah. How about you, man? What you been watching?
So, a while ago, I had went back to rewatch some of the Puppet Master films. Like I do every year, it just happens. And since we're in this awesome time of all celebrating horror films and stuff, I was like, I need to watch a few more of those. Just squeeze them in. And I wanted to talk about one, because is it good? I don't know. I like it, but it mystifies me, and I just wanted to share it. So I rewatched Curse of the Puppet Master from 1998. This is the 6th entry in the franchise.
So this is, in the original chronology.
Mm-mm.
Oh, God.
So really the original chronology kind of stops with the 5th one until they made some backported prequels. Because when the 5th one ended, they were going to do this whole Puppet Wars thing where they were going to have a bunch of movies and all these different puppets and stuff and go crazy. And then none of that happened. I think they ran into some financial problems or
full moon financial problems. You don't say.
So there wasn't a Puppet Master movie for a long time, and I remember then this just showed up at the local video store. and it has this gnarly cover of like the lead actor, and the puppets are like all around him, and he's pulling up his shirt. And instead of like a normal body, he has like a clockwork wooden body.
Right. I remember seeing that. It was a cool cover.
It's a very cool cover, very striking. Immediately you notice the fact that the numbers are gone. So is this the sixth part? I guess I don't know. It's the sixth one to come out, but then there's no number anymore. So when you watch it, it's weird because like there's no continuity with any of the other films in the franchise. It just focuses on this guy named Dr. McGrew, who runs like a little local museum oddity sideshow kind of thing. And he's currently the puppet master. He has Toulon's trunk. He's got the puppets. And he incorporates them in his little show. Because it's like, oh, look at these puppets that don't need strings. And it focuses on this young man who's kind of like bullied. It kind of implies like maybe he's a little mentally slow or something, and he kind of is just like aimless. And Dr. McGrew takes him in because he realizes he's very good with his hands and like carving and building things. And so he wants him to like build stuff to use in his shows. And it's weird because if you go beat by beat in the plot, it's basically the plot of the older film. I don't know how else you say it, like SSSSSSSSSS. I'm sure you've seen that title before.
Yeah.
Which is about a dude who runs a sideshow who mesmerizes snakes and makes them perform and do tricks.
Yeah.
This film is beat for beat that film, except they have replaced snakes with puppets.
So it's puppets.
Yeah, it's puppets 6. It's just so weird and so off the wall, and it's like they never really acknowledge it, but it's clearly like every single little plot point that happens is the same. And then it's even weirder because eventually, of course, the puppets do start killing people, like you do in one of these films.
As they should, yeah.
And they set it up so like every situation that happens will guide the person into being killed in a way that is very similar to how they were killed in one of the prior 5 films. So much so that they then use stock footage of the puppet performing the kill with some clever editing to make it sync up. So I don't know what happened. I'm sure there's an interesting story here. I really need to dig back, and I have that book that came out, like the complete history of the franchise.
That's Roger Corman territory there.
But the characters are fun, and it's an entertaining story, even if it is a total rip of another movie. There's one great original scene, and it is that cover scene where he has like a nightmare that he becomes a puppet. That part's pretty gnarly. I think they spent most of their budget there, probably.
On a nightmare scene. It's not even real.
Well, because that's the crazy thing, because again, if you follow the plot of the film they're ripping off, at the end, he tries to like turn the lead into a puppet. But the whole film, you've seen him like building like a wooden parts that fit together, and that's what his nightmare is. And then when he like puts him in the puppet, it's like a metal robot looking thing. Almost like they made that separate before they realized what they were doing.
Oh.
And then just out of nowhere, it's like, oh, well, here's what it is. Truly
Charles
weird,
Band.
truly bonkers. Most people probably won't like it, but there's some fun, weird charm to it. So I always go back and rewatch it quite a bit.
Well, I know you're a sucker for them. They're Puppet Master movies.
I am.
So you may not be the most rational person.
Yeah. I mean, they got, what is it, another spinoff coming soon, Dr. Death, but one of the retro puppets, and I'm there for it. I can't stop.
Of course you
I
are.
can't stop, Jason, help me.
That's your problem.
So today we are talking about Mermaid in the Manhole from 1988. One of the entries in the Guinea Pig series.
The infamous Guinea Pig series.
I feel like we have to define a lot of stuff before we talk about this one to really do it credit. So I guess first let's start with, what is the Guinea Pig series? This infamous thing we keep referring to. Do you have an answer?
Well, superficially, I know that they are a series of films, like shot on video. They're pretty short. They're usually like an hour or so. And I think they're pretty much the same producers, right? But they have different directors and writers and everything. And they were just all kind of put out under this one, title of the Guinea Pig. The first one was The Devil's Experiment, 85, I believe.
Yes.
And they seem to they start hardcore, not like pornographic hardcore, but they start very violent, very...
Like pseudo snuff film.
Yeah, like a pseudo snuff film. Because all of Devil's Experiment is just torture. It's just torturing this one girl. And Flowers of Flesh and Blood, the famous one that Charlie Sheen freaked out over, that's also just this girl being mutilated and everything. But then they start getting more...
After that, they go in some weird directions.
There's they start having more stories.
Comedy, one that's got like more plot to it.
Yeah. They get less... what's the word I'm looking for? Less graphic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
comparatively.
Fair.
Comparatively.
To themselves, not to other films.
No, yeah,
because they're definitely in a league of their own.
Yeah.
So tied into it, too, there's also 2 making-of documentaries that got made about the series along the way. And it's important to note that all of this kind of spawned out of, like, as far as the concept, from manga artist Hideshi Hino, who also wrote and directed 2 of the films in the series, Flower of Flesh and Blood, and then the one we're covering, Mermaid in the Manhole. Basically, the pitch for it originally was he just kind of wanted to make some films that adapted his works. And in the course of that, it spiraled out into what we got here with Guinea Pig. So the big thing, we keep saying it's infamous, and it's gotten a ton of controversy, primarily for its depiction of violence.
Especially against women.
Yes.
But, I mean, really, that's mostly... Well, I mean, it is and it isn't horror in a nutshell, because I think if you stacked up all the kills in all the movies, more men get killed than women.
Yeah. So, as far as releases, there's been like the push to like not have these released and banned in different places. In the U.S., they did get a DVD release by Unearthed Films, which I think we've brought up on some of our prior episodes on this.
Of course, that's like 20 years after the fact, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a series of 3 discs, and each one had like 2 of the features. And then I think they made a box set right after, which that box set is like, ooh, really hard to get now. It's like worth some money if you can find it.
But these were floating around like, video stores that were like, had gray market materials, you know, 3rd, 4th generation copies. You could find them if you looked hard enough, but they were pretty hard to find throughout the 80s and 90s for sure.
And then it's interesting because eventually Unearthed Films started producing their own series called American Guinea Pig, and that's inspired by these.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen any of those?
I have not, no.
I've only seen like videos about them, so I've seen scenes from them and stuff.
I've been curious to try them, but I feel like part of the charm is like the time these were made in the late 80s into the 90s.
Yes. Also their Japanesiness.
Yeah. There's some weird Japanesiness that's charming and hard to not enjoy, even with the heavy subject matter. So I've danced around a little bit, but we don't rightly know what number this is in the series. And there's a lot of different sources that differ on where this is placed. So the first 3 are pretty much lock solid. Devil's Experiment in 85, Flower of Flesh and Blood in 85, and then He Never Dies in 86. For the back 3, it gets a little mushy there on what's going where. So in a 2009 interview with Vice, Hino said that he had nothing to do with the 4th Guinea Pig film, suggesting that he doesn't consider Mermaid in the Manhole to be the 4th entry. But Stephen Biro, the co-founder of Unearthed Films, lists Mermaid in the Manhole as the 4th film. And then in the book, The Encyclopedia of Japanese Horror Films, Salvador Jimenez Murguia, probably butchered that name, I am sorry, bro. He claims that this was the 6th one to be produced, but in release order, it ended up being the 4th.
Interesting.
Which, if you look at these years, so Mermaid in the Manhole was 88, Android of Notre Dame was 88, and then Devil Woman Doctor is 90.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of all really right in that little cluster together.
I've also heard that Devil Woman Doctor isn't really considered a guinea pig film by a lot of people.
That is true.
Because it's like a comedy, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty bonkers, though.
Yeah, right.
And then, there's never been a continuation. I don't know how that would ever even happen at this point. Probably this American Guinea Pig thing's the best you're going to get as far as just like a homage to it. I do think to some degree there have been other things that kind of try to punch at it, like August Underground.
Mm-hmm.
I think those definitely punch toward those early ones, like Flower of Flesh and Blood.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Hideshi Hino real quick. He was born April 19th, 1946, and he's a Japanese manga artist that specializes exclusively in horror. He has several famous different series he's done, including Hell Baby, Hino Horrors, which is sort of like a collection of shorts, and Panorama of Hell. So he had often considered a job in the film industry, and the works of some other artists that inspired him, like Shigeru Sugiura and Yoshiharu Suge, inspired him to instead go into art and drawing to express his ideas. He got his start working on doujinshi, which is a very Japanese concept that's essentially fan comics, where you might have a property that exists that's like a well-known thing, and then you make your own comic
Okay.
and kind of sell it in the gray area.
Right, yeah.
That's much more accepted in Japan. They'll actually have like conventions and like little market festivals where people just come and sell their fan works like that.
That's cool. They're not suing each other into oblivion. That's
Right. I
good.
mean, there's regulations about it, and like I don't think you could go like large scale and go to a factory and like run off your own
Right.
own books and like the hundreds of thousands of copies, but
Sure. Little fanzines and stuff are cool.
and then his first professional work was a short that got published in Osamu Tezuka's experimental manga magazine Calm in '67. From '68 and on, he published a lot in the alternative magazine Garo. And then he serialized Hideshi Hino's Shocking Theater in 1971. And then subnote on the subnote, I wanted to mention Garo for a minute. This was this really prominent avant-garde magazine, and it featured a lot of other manga artists like Hino that all kind of had this same style of like very graphic, very gory, very extreme. One of the notable ones is Suehiro Maru, which if you've ever seen his artwork, it's like very striking. And I'll maybe throw a picture or something in the show notes so people can see that.
You should.
But they all kind of fall into this genre, this art movement all to itself called eroguro, which we're going to get into in a minute.
Okay.
So I also prepared notes on that. I am so sorry, Jason. Just to wrap us up on Hino, in 2004, Pony Canyon, which is a production company in Japan, they made a series of 6 live-action films adapting some of his manga, and it was called Hideshi Hino's Theater of Horror. This actually got a release over here in the U.S. on DVD in the like Japanese horror boom. Mm-hmm. I'm ashamed to say I do not have it, and it's very hard to track down now.
Wow.
So it's one of the few things I'll often troll eBay for, and just to see if like some copies have popped up on
You've
there.
never seen it?
I've seen them, but I don't own it.
Is it worth seeing? Is it good?
They're fun, yeah. They're low budget, but it's like the tone of all his stuff is so good. I think that like carries it even more.
Okay.
A lot of his manga, if you want to read some of his stuff, there were some releases back in the day, but it's all out of print now, and you just pretty much can't find anything. However, just recently, one of his series, it's like a single volume story, Town of Pigs, got a new release by Starfruit Books, which is this little publishing company that deals in kind of like manga that's fallen through the cracks. I noticed they had some other like horror artists that they're kind of licensing and picking up. So when I checked before the show, it looked like they were almost sold out of their first run, and they're going to do a second run. So it seems like people are digging it. Maybe it'll lead to more of his stuff getting released and getting out there.
That's cool.
I think he's a great artist, and especially like his ideas. When we talk about this film, this is all his idea. So I think he's a very creative guy as far as like blending horror and other themes.
Okay, you mentioning that box at the Theater of Horror. I saw one of those.
Yeah.
I saw The Boy from Hell back in the day.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I was just looking those up, and I remember that cover. I remember seeing that. So I've seen one of them at least.
It was fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
So to back us up to my last side diversion. Pretty much this whole series of Guinea Pig and a lot of the works of Hideshi Hino all fall into this genre called eroguro nonsensu. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to translate that over, it stands for erotic, grotesque, nonsense.
Yep. That's a good description.
Or often just called eroguro for short. So what this is an artistic genre that puts its focus on eroticism, sexual corruption, and decadence. And it means to imply, as you might think, something that when you look at it, it is both erotic, but yet also grotesque at the same time. So that's a little hard to pin down. So let us...
It's very subjective.
Yeah, it is very subjective.
And very Japanese, I think.
So the term itself is an example of what they call wasei ego, which that is a Japanese combination of English words or other abbreviated terms. So of course, ero for erotic, guro for grotesque, and then nonsensu for nonsense.
Got it.
So the grotesqueness implied is like referring to things that are maybe malformed, unnatural, or somehow horrific. So in this way, something that's pornographic and bloody might not also be eroguro. And in the same way, vice versa. Mm-hmm. It's not like a one-to-one, it's like a square rectangle kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times this term does get mistaken, especially to Western audiences, to just mean like gore films.
Yeah.
Or anything that's like gore focused. Like just only on the blood and the guts. But it's something more than that. It's a little more specific. Mm-hmm. A little harder to pin down, I think.
I think perhaps a Western equivalent might be like some of David Cronenberg's work.
I think that's a good comparison. Mm-hmm. Especially when you think of like
Shivers.
Shivers, yeah, that's what I was just thinking of. Shivers.
Right.
That perfectly blends that line where you're like, it makes you uncomfortable.
Or his latest film.
Oh, yeah. Crimes of the Future, yeah.
Yeah.
There's like, it's an uneasiness where it's like there is that allure there and you can see it and you can feel it. But at the same time, you're uncomfortable.
So you feel bad for getting turned on.
So you feel bad. And it even makes you question, like, is this right? Why am I feeling this way?
I learned to stop asking that a long time ago.
So this had a whole boom and became a subculture. As far as like exploring the deviant, the bizarre, the ridiculous. And it really first manifested during the 1920s in what was known as the Taisho era of Japan. So I have some little notes I pulled to help us define it further.
It goes way back.
This is from writer Ian Baruma, and talking about that era, that time, it was described as a skittish, sometimes nihilistic hedonism that brings to mind Weimar Berlin. So artistically, the roots go back to things like Tsukioka Yoshitoshi, who actually made some like woodblock prints that would show like decapitations and other depictions of violence. And then there's also stuff like ukiyo-e artists like Utagawa Kuniyoshi that did similar like woodblock prints and things like that, but would depict like bondage or rape, or I think he's even got one where it's like a crucifixion, but it's like eroticized slightly. And so a lot of this also started appearing in literature of the time, of the 20s and the 30s. And there was one notable incident that was kind of like a launch point for a lot of this. And that is the Sada Abe incident of 1936. And so this is a real thing that happened, that became a story that like everyone talked about. And it was a woman strangled her lover to death and then castrated his corpse. And that seemed to the extremity of that and the graphic nature of it really struck a chord with a lot of people. And in response to this and the like focus it had, that led to a lot of like censorship that was being pushed. And it kind of made this back and forth pull between like they're trying to rein this in, but then other people being like, well, like, wait, let's explore this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then a lot of these activities and movements got suppressed during Japan and World War II, but then in the post-war period, through like manga and even music, it began to be explored again.
Interesting.
So as an element, you can see this in a lot of Japanese horror films and even piku, particularly from the 60s and the 70s. Some ones I wanted to highlight. There's Teruo Ishii's Shogun's Joy of Torture.
I've seen that
from
one.
1968. Mm-hmm. Personal favorite to my heart here, Horrors of Malformed Men from 1969.
Also a good one.
And also Yasuzo Masamura's Blind Beast from 1969.
I have not seen that one, but I've read a lot about it.
And then notably, Blind Beast and Horrors of Malformed Men, they're both based on works of Edogawa Rampo.
I was going to ask if he fits into this somehow.
Who does fit into this. He's an author from that earlier time there that we were talking about. He did a lot of short story stuff, a lot of like detective fiction, a lot of crime fiction, a lot of horror stuff.
And his name's a Japanification of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes, because that is who he is compared to the most in his style. He really gets into some weird erotic stuff in a few of his tales. Great stuff. A lot of his works are translated into English now, so it's out there and you can go pick it up. Of course, I wanted to toss it in. My boy, Shion Sono, he has a film that fits into this subgenre, and that is Strange Circus from 2005.
That is one I have not seen.
Very hard to watch. We'll get to it maybe one day.
Okay.
That might be a you and me film to cover in the future.
Yeah. Wait till Michael takes another sabbatical and we'll get this weird, fucked up shit again.
So this has carried on into the modern day, and there's still currently artists that kind of draw on this as an influence. And again, it's that whole idea of you take the macabre and you intermingle it with these sexual overtones to make this almost confusing mix in the end. Sometimes this can be compared to things like the works of H.R. Giger, because he as well mixed horrific imagery with eroticism.
Very phallic.
And then also, of course, there's things like drawing on this idea of eroguro. You have Japanese pornography that also leans into that, which gets into some weird stuff. I think that's like if you want to say like a squirm fest, if we dare to bring that up again.
Oh man.
So for today, if you wanted to go look for some of these eroguro artists and check them out, ones we've already talked about, Suehiro Maruo, and our guy today, Hideshi Hino. Some other ones worth looking out for is Shintaro Kago, Toshio Maeda, and Uziga Waita.
Toshio.
Oh, I threw this in for you, Jason. Also, technically, the modern genre of this is typically in hentai, so like animated pornography. The little subgenre of tentacle rape technically spawned out of the category of eroguro.
Spawned. Good choice of words there.
It does have older roots, of course. You go back way, way far. You have stuff like the what is it, like the woman and the octopus, that old like block print thing.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's a little connection point to Urotsuki Doji, which I know you love.
I do. Looking at the poster right now.
So this is a very weird subgenre, but it's also very cool, and it's one I've always liked a lot, just because it's interesting.
It is indeed that.
And so to kind of wrap us up on this, I pulled this from an article, which I'll link in our show notes. It was from a little place called Days Digital, and the author, Evelyn Wang, kind of did this overview breakdown of the genre, probably better than I've done, so you may want to go follow up there. But she kind of laid out in points like, why does this matter? Like, why should you care about this? And as far as like points of like interesting things about it, so as an art form, it acted as this kind of resistance and societal critique on the times. Through the kind of stories and art that was told with it, it also documented a lot of things like the liberation of women and their culture, and it also led to a lot of queer visibility in media through the types of characters that would appear in these stories. So, actually pretty impactful even for this kind of underground thing.
Yeah, there's some cultural worth to it. It's not just...
And even to this day, its legacy is still resonating out into other forms of media. I think like once you see more of these films and more of this art and manga and stuff, you'll look to like modern Japanese horror, and you'll see the little kernels there that have kind of like bled through all the way still to today.
Okay. So you think there's a decline of this sort of thing nowadays? There's not as much out there?
I mean, I think it's always kind of been a niche thing, so...
Yeah. Everything comes in cycles.
Yeah. So with that out of the way, let's talk about our movie, Mermaid in the Manhole.
Mermaid in the Manhole. What is Mermaid in the Manhole about, briefly?
So I've got a synopsis. It's a fun one. An artist finds and rescues a mermaid with bleeding sores and uses what oozes from her sores to paint her portrait. Now that's also basically the whole plot of the movie, so good night, everybody.
Yeah, see you later, bye. Yeah, it is a short film. It's only an hour long, which is a good length for this. Any longer would have been a bit too much.
I think so.
It's got a story it tells, and it tells it, and then it gets out.
And I think the reason I picked this one, too, because this was my choice, it's surprising because you come in and you kind of know the infamy. That these are like, oh, these are basically just snuff films with no plot. And it's kind of just all the gore and everything. And this one has like a defined story.
It does have a plot, yes.
And it has fantastical elements, we'll say.
Yes. But it does open, as all good movies should, in a sewer.
Yes.
And we see all this detritus laying there everywhere. There's like bugs crawling and worms and a dead baby.
And my first little fun like Hideshi Hino shout out thing.
Yeah.
The baby that's floating in the sewer, the way it looks and kind of with the weird face and stuff, it's very similar to the design of the titular Hell baby from that manga.
Okay.
So I wondered if that was like a particular throw in.
He's making a little appearance there. Cool.
Yes, we have a nice little sewer.
And so we see a man crawling around down there, shining his flashlight and stuff like that. And then we cut to him painting a picture of the baby he saw in the sewer.
And this very much looks like the manga character in the painting.
Yeah. So we get the impression this guy gets inspiration from going down into the sewers.
And why not? Everyone's got their muse.
Sure. You never know where you're going to find inspiration. But they pan over shots of his artwork, and it's all macabre and grungy and morbid, people would say.
Yes, I think so. And we get a little bit of establishing stuff. He's got a pair of neighbors.
These neighbors, man.
They're maybe a married couple. They're maybe just dating. I don't know. They're like the archetypical
nosy neighbors.
Nosy neighbors. Yeah.
They're Mrs. Kravitz.
Yeah. And we should say none of these characters are really named. So our artist is played by Shigeru Saiki, but we're never given a name. And then the neighbors, even in the credits, it's just neighbor male and neighbor female.
Yeah, and they're a hoot, these two.
Yep, the guy is played by Go Riju, and the woman is Masami Hisamoto.
Throughout the movie, I'm wondering how much of this is played for laughs.
Yeah.
Because either it's intentional or unintentional here. It's one or the other. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Because there are some like long, awkward takes on these people, and they have very exaggerated reactions to things.
They have this. Sometimes they have this like it's almost like the stupid mouth breather look to them. It's just like
right, yeah.
There's nothing bouncing around up there.
But it looks like they're struggling not to laugh.
Yeah.
Throughout a lot of it, and I'm wondering how much of that is intentional. I really want to know. Because being shot on video, it does have an amateurish kind of look to it. This is not a slick production. It doesn't look bad per se. But, I mean, and it wasn't unusual for a lot of media to be shot on video back in the day. Probably still, actually, in Japan, I imagine. Of course, things look better than they did then.
Of course. Which we should say, and I didn't even mention it last time, this isn't streaming anywhere. The only release is that out-of-print DVD you can track down. It's out there.
Yeah, if you look hard enough, you can find it.
If you really want to find it, it's out there.
Yeah. I mean, if you like movies that are kind of effed up, you might be able to find it.
If you happen to be a fan of effed up movies and knew how to go and look at things on the internet because you were trying to find effed up movies to watch,
you could probably find it.
Perhaps you could. You too could watch this movie.
So yeah, these neighbors are great, and they're talking about how they get a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, because they're a little worried about their neighbor.
Yeah, because his wife left him a month ago. They say, and he's not very friendly to them.
Like, he kind of keeps to himself.
Yeah, he's that loner that keeps to himself. Real quiet type.
We know those people. Jason.
What? I'm a social butterfly.
So he goes out on one of his little expeditions to check into the sewer. I don't love how they set it up, because this is also kind of comical, and I don't know if it's intentional, but it's like he goes to the manhole, he's kind of hanging around for a minute, and then he reaches, and like hidden under a board, he's left himself the crowbar to pry it up.
Right.
You can tell he's like done this all the time.
And he goes down and he starts talking about how it used to be a river there, where he used to play when he was a child.
And it's neat because they do a little cutaway and they show us one of his paintings where he has like illustrated what that was like.
And it's like a nice happy painting. It's not macabre and stuff.
Yeah, it's very like children's book almost.
And he says something along the lines of about all the beautiful things that he has lost down there. And he goes looking around and he's like finding remnants of his past in the sewer.
And then he finds like it's a cat, isn't it?
I don't know what that thing was.
Some kind of animal.
It was probably supposed to be a cat. It's called chibi, he calls it. But I mean, it's mostly intact. It's not like it's rotted.
Yeah.
How long ago did he lose chibi? Is it even chibi?
But he's grief stricken. But then he is like, I do have to paint you though, and like immortalize you. And
right.
But there's a sound.
Yes, he hears something splashing around. He goes check it out, and what should he find but a mermaid in the manhole?
Yes, as the title might suggest.
A rather attractive Japanese lady. She has typical mermaid. She's got the bottom and lower half of a fish, and it looks pretty good. I like how the scales look and stuff.
Yeah, the scales are actually pretty realistic. You can tell it's like a big,
Oh, she's just wearing a sock, basically, over
sock
two
type
legs.
prop thing.
Sure, but it looks nice.
yeah, played by Mari Somei, who is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw this out there before we get into anything that happens. She is an amazing actress for even doing this movie.
Oh, I was going to say that
She could easily have gone and been in like any number of Yakuza films and just stood around in a pretty dress and made bank, but she chose to be in this movie.
And she gives it her all.
Yeah.
There's something special about Japanese actresses. I'm not sure what it is, but so many of them will submit themselves to the weirdest shit and just go with it.
And little fun subnote on her. Well, maybe this isn't fun. It could be sad, I guess. But she only was starred in a few films, and it was mostly like weird horror stuff like this, or like soft-core-ish or pink films. This was her last film.
Oh.
And she was 25 at the time. And in that year, 1988, she disappeared.
Disappeared?
Yep. The only known facts about her is that she retired from the movie industry, and that's it. Nothing else is known about her.
So hopefully nothing nefarious happened to her, and she's just living her life in anonymity.
I don't know if you looked into this at all.
Not deeply.
Okay. Because I saw this note, and I was like, okay, is this just like some BS to promote the movie? Like, oh, the actress vanished.
Sure.
I actually dug quite a bit and started sitting through like Google Translate and very half-assed like translating web pages in Japanese into English. This seems to be like the actual story. No one really knows what happened to her.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's sad. Well, hopefully she's, living somewhere and happy.
I hope so.
And not in a sewer.
Not in a manhole.
Huh.
But yes, and we quickly realize the artist recognizes her.
Yeah, he says that he saw the mermaid when he was younger, when he was a kid.
And they kind of share this moment, and she starts to talk to him, but it's telepathically.
Yeah.
She speaks into his mind.
Yeah, she says that she got stranded here when the river dried up. So already it's a very, magical realism sort of setup here.
It's a little Del Toro-ish, I guess, but
Yeah.
without the whimsy.
Yeah, there's not much whimsy in this. And he, starts sketching her and everything.
Yep, she tells him it's his goal to paint and be an artist.
Yes, that she will replace all that he has lost.
Yep, and she'll model for him.
And I think he comes and goes, a few days or something. It's not just the one trip.
It's a little vague.
He comes back. But it's quickly revealed that she is sick.
Yes.
She's got some sort of growths.
She reveals it's right at her stomach. There's this
Yeah.
reddish nastiness.
Yeah.
And immediately we should get into this. Props to the special effects makeup guy, Nobuaki Koga.
They're pretty good.
He is the mastermind behind all of this, and man, it all looks so good. I mean, not good, but
Right. It looks nice and gross.
it's
and
gross
disgusting
and squicky, and you believe it.
Yeah. Yep. She shows him this abscess or whatever it is, and the painter says that you get those in such places. See, that's one of those lines where I'm thinking, is this supposed to be a little bit funny?
It's got to be
Is it
meant
just
to be funny.
gallows humor, And then he decides he's got to take her home.
Right.
Right? As you do.
Which they don't show us really how it happens.
Right. We just see two men. We see two men delivering a bathtub to his house.
Yeah. And again, as they're delivering it, the neighbors out there are like,
They're gawking. What's going on? What's he want a bathtub for? Because a lot of places, bathtubs weren't all that common, right?
Right.
In Japanese homes.
Especially not that style of tub.
Right. Yeah. And I made a note about that too, because we don't see how he gets her there. She's just there in the tub. So you're wondering how much of this is in his head or not.
Right.
She says that he's got a painter, and that's his mission.
Yeah, he wants to get her some medicine at first.
Yeah.
And it's kind of insinuated it's not really going to help.
Yeah, because they get worse. It's like these cancerous, tumorous growths.
Man, they're gnarly.
They're pretty gnarly. And she begins writhing in pain and stuff. And they start to bust with blood, and she's trying to staunch the flow. But
See, I was more okay this time because I had seen it before. The first time I watched this, I almost couldn't look at the screen.
did it get you?
Yeah, and
Oh,
a lot of
wow.
this stuff. I mean, I was in high school, so I was
Sure.
not the experienced veteran that I am now. But man, it's still. Ooh.
So that's probably on VHS too, right?
Yeah.
I bet it had a different tone on VHS too, because it's not as clear and it looks more grungy.
Oh yeah. So he starts to paint her, and her condition continues to deteriorate until these tumors are just like completely filling up her body, even like taking over her chest, and it almost gets into like a body horror.
Oh yeah,
kind of feel.
yeah.
And then we get an escalation of their situation because, like you were saying, these like tumorous growths begin to burst, and they're spewing all this strange liquid. And we learn that she has 6 different colors of pus within her. And she encourages him to kind of harvest that and use it for his painting.
Yep. So he starts cutting at them with a razor and collecting all of the fluid into jars.
Which, I mean, technically you should get that fluid out of there.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Eh.
This may not be the best way to do it, you know?
Yeah. And, I wanted to point out some more Hino facts for you. So, yeah, Michael, if you could just make a stinger for that. Hino facts.
Hino facts.
So his one work, Panorama of Hell, very popular. I've read that one. It's super good. It's about this demented artist that uses blood to make his paintings. And with each one, he kind of presents it to you and then tells you a story about the person it's based on.
And that's shades of Color Me Blood Red.
Yes.
H.G. Lewis movie.
And so it made me think this was probably another inspiration on this movie. That idea of the artist taking
for sure.
bodily fluids to construct his work.
Yeah, or a bucket of blood, something like that.
And then fun shout out, because we both love Junji Ito. There is a chapter of his Tomy manga, which also got made into the film Tomy Rebirth, that has this same premise. The artist murders Tomy and then uses her blood to construct a painting of her.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So lots of little connections here with this idea of a tormented painter.
Oh, we get another great scene with the neighbors too, because she wants to eat fish, right? So he gets her fish, but he's like taking out a bag and putting it in front of his house for the trash people to come to pick up.
Yeah.
The neighbor's out there, and he goes back in immediately, and she's looking at the bag, and this blood's kind of oozing out. And she starts messing around with it, and this big fish head flops out, and her reaction is fantastic.
And then it's great because it cuts inside, and she goes in to tell her guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's weird about having a fish head in your trash?
And she's like, it looks like it was one bite. Took the head's fish off. And they're talking about how it stinks next door and stuff like that. So then her condition begins to deteriorate even more. More of these pustules.
Starts to cover up her face, and her hair starts receding.
Yeah, so we get more scenes of him cutting them.
And it's sad, too, because when he first makes the painting, it's her as she is normal.
Yeah.
And as she progresses through these stages, he keeps updating the painting, now with her bodily fluids, to this like grotesque form that she's assuming into.
And then the anti-worms and stuff start like bursting out, and crawling out of the...
This even now is still hard for me to watch. Especially, too, because they do close-ups on like the bursted tumors, and they fed the bugs through so they like crawl up out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he's like pulling them out. And it does have these...
Yeah, this would be my hell.
At least they weren't like arachnids. It does have like... It seems like library sound effects, which are at the same time charming but also disturbing.
I thought it was really well done for most of the film. There's one scene where the sound effects really kind of jump off the tracks, and we'll get to that here in a minute.
I think I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, and we can't understate how well Somei's performance is in this.
Oh, she goes for it.
She
nuts.
sells it completely.
And she's covered in all this stuff, and covered in the worms and the bugs and stuff, and she's a trooper.
And I wanted to connect it up to...
maybe it's why she quit the industry. I don't know.
I mean, you don't need another performance after this. The whole like eroguro thing. The first time she has some of the tumors and they start like really bothering her, she screams a lot and is like flailing. And the camera kind of lingers on her, and it's the artist's like vision as he's watching her. And did you get the vibe that almost kind of had like an erotic tone to it?
Yeah, it's like something you would see in a softcore porn or something. Yeah, that kind of soft focus and slow motion sort of thing going on. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight that just because that's that style in there.
Yep. And she says something like he has to paint her to the moment before she dies.
Yeah, to capture it.
And she starts pulling at her scalp, and her body's just decaying more and more. Her eyeball pops out. That was pretty gnarly.
That one's very gnarly. And then it's disturbing because the next time you see her after that, the makeup and stuff where it's progressed further, the eye is still there, but it's like it's grown up and out and then like morphed with one of the tumors.
Yeah.
If you know the anime Akira, at the end of that when he starts to like morph out of control,
Okay.
it kind of has that same look, I think.
Sure. Definitely. And he says that the painting's finished and he can show it to her, but she says that it's too late and he has to kill her.
Yep.
So then he begins slashing and cutting her up with a knife.
And this is two things about this scene. Number one, this is where it's the most like the other Guinea Pig films.
Yeah.
The early ones. This
A lot
is
of
just
like
straight
cutting
up,
off appendages and stuff like that.
and just mutilation and just close-ups on gore and blood and everything.
we get some pretty funny sound effects here too.
This is the part I was talking about. They kick in these sound effects and it's just like, man, what would you even describe these as? It's almost like a 20s comedy or something. The way these sound effects sound.
Yeah. It's the audio equivalent of that flash of lightning that like every horror movie used for like 50 years.
And it's really out of place, but I don't think it's bad either. Because I think, too, it kind of sets up this, like, unreality that you're in. That he's there with this mermaid dismembering her. And a part of you has to ask, like, is any of this even real?
Yeah.
At this point.
Right. And the neighbors downstairs, they're saying that smell's getting worse, and then blood starts dropping down onto their table from the ceiling.
Because it's interesting. Their apartments are adjacent, but it seems like his apartment has a second floor.
Yeah, it must go above theirs.
And it's like an artist loft that goes up and then cuts across over their apartment.
Yeah. So we have to check this out. They start investigating.
They go to the door. She urges the guy to go in first. And when he tries the door, it just opens. Mm-hmm. So, like you do, you just creep in.
Well, sure, you gotta investigate this stuff.
Yeah.
And they find him just, like, mindlessly chopping at the mermaid, question mark.
She's literally just gore now.
Yeah, it's just, like, weird body parts here and there.
Great, disturbing scene.
Yeah. Like, he's just, like, mindlessly hacking.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get to the police. They come, and they're talking to the neighbors. And turns out that it was his wife that he had murdered, that he was hacking apart.
And we get a bunch of plot exposition.
Yeah, a little info
real quick.
dump at the end.
Effectively, his wife had stomach cancer.
But was also... we forgot about the baby.
Oh, yeah.
When he's cutting her up, he pulls out a baby.
Yep. It looks a lot like the baby in the sewer.
Yeah. So, yeah, his wife had stomach cancer and was like 8 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And, so apparently he was chopping up his wife's body. So a lot of this was in his head. But there's a collection of evidence at the end.
Yes.
And amongst this evidence is a single scale of unknown origin that looks like the scales that made up her fish parts.
And they can't explain it.
Yes.
But it's just a curious footnote to a dude murdering his wife.
Yep.
Now, Jason, I know you are not a credits guy. Mm-mm. Did you stick around for the stinger?
Oh, shit. I don't think I did. Wait, what's the stinger?
So the credits play out. They're pretty short because there's not a lot of people on this cast. And then it goes to black. And then it fades back in and you're in the sewer and you hear like the water running and everything. And then just around the corner of the bend, you hear a splash like there's movement back there.
Oh.
And then it goes off.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a little final,
Yeah.
Which is it?
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Man, you got to wait through the credits. Come on.
Apparently, I do.
You
I didn't expect this from a movie from 1988.
So that is the film. Again, it's very lean. It's just 60 minutes. You're in and you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything longer would have been a bit too much, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
So it's a good length.
So I wanted to ask you. As far as like themes on this film, is this just a weird concepted gore film, or is there something going on here?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Because it is just kind of a simple gore film, but also, I mean, you could say that on the very surface, it's how he dealt with his mental breakdown of killing his wife. Maybe she's dealing with the cancer, it drove him insane,
He couldn't deal with it.
on top of the baby and everything like that.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he rationalizes that, it's a mermaid, and he's trying to recapture the essence of his youth because he keeps talking about that's why he goes down in the sewers to begin with.
Right, because he's trying to reconnect to his home, his childhood. That was the thing I picked up on. I think a lot of this film is about like the loss of innocence and the way that like the things that are wonderful to you and the wonders and the mystery of childhood, over time that can get trampled kind of by the adult world as you move and transition into that.
Yeah, all that magic disappears.
And so that's the transition of it was this like lush green river with animals and nature and this beautiful mermaid that inspired him to this great art. And then we come to his adult life, and it's just this ratty manhole sewer area that's discarded. Everything's trash. Everything is diseased, decaying, falling apart.
Right.
And I think also once you know the twist regarding his wife, you can also kind of look at the film as like a meditation on grief and the way people try to process that, or I think maybe in this instance fail to process that. So like, generally like faced with this harsh reality that his life was, and unable to reconcile the fact that he was torn down to this point and then decided to kill his wife, and he can't rectify that. He instead kind of envisions her as a mermaid and makes this like scenario for himself to try to make it okay.
Yeah. And of course that scenario in his mind is almost as bad
Right.
as the reality, so...
And if you look at it from that angle, then that's like the truth, breaking that shell that he's constructed to kind of pull him back to what's really going on.
Right.
And I think it's notable because once we know the twist, if you go back, the initial kind of weird thing with the mermaid, that little like tumorous growth that starts on her stomach.
Yeah.
So that links back up with the stomach cancer.
True. So I think maybe like the mermaid's deterioration is allegorical to his mental deterioration.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And then I think another thing, I don't know why I keep tossing all these out, but here we go. So I also think maybe this film's asking a question of like, can art be born from suffering?
Oh.
Because through her suffering, he's trying to create art.
I mean, isn't the best art made through some sort of suffering? Like the best artists always seem to be the most unhappy. Yeah. Well,
so I think it dwells on that a little bit, maybe just in a very exaggerated way to have that conversation.
It's all very over the top.
Yeah. So I think I don't have any more notes about this film.
No, me either.
What are your final thoughts? It's a little movie, but I think it packs a lot in there.
Well, I think it's the strangest remake of Splash.
Splash. What is Splash?
It's the Tom Hanks movie. Daryl Hannah.
Never seen it.
Mermaid movie. Splash.
Nope.
Oh, man. Someone out there will get this. Someone thinks it's funny right fucking now.
I'm just looking at you with a blank face and a smile.
As usual. I enjoyed it. It's good to finally see one of the Guinea Pig films. I've never actually seen all of them in their entirety, like bits and pieces here.
You can't avoid it, man.
Yeah, I know. Puns make themselves. It was fun. I mean, it was gross, but it wasn't like shocking or too terribly disturbing because it is so over the top. It's such an extreme, presentation.
And then even too, like the pus when he's collecting that, and it's the 6 colors. They make it like bright neon, like neon purple, neon green.
It reminded me of Street Trash.
Yeah.
When everyone melts and stuff. It's
That's a
those
good
very
comparison.
vibrant colors. Yeah. I think Street Trash came out before this, so that could have been influenced somehow. I think maybe. I could see the Japanese digging Street Trash.
Oh yeah.
It's a little amateurish, but it's low budget. It's shot on video, and how much of that over the top acting is intentional or not? I
think the couple next door are supposed to be funny.
Yeah,
That's like your pressure release.
sure. It helps alleviate some of the gore and misery and stuff. So I did enjoy it. I like it. I think it works as a movie, not just a gore film. I don't think it's exceptionally profound or anything. I think it's a cool representation of Hino. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Of his artwork. At the end of the day, I would give it 3 stars. Mostly because I think we've had a bit more to talk about it than I thought I would, like what you can read into it and stuff. But it's a little surface level. It's a little obvious, I guess.
Maybe.
But But I mean, I did enjoy it.
Hold on, let me file away my dissertation that I made about this film.
So 3 stars. That's where I'm at.
Okay, cool. I love this movie. I loved it before. I picked it specifically just so we could talk about it. Again, like I said, I think when you go with this series, they do kind of get that like typecast of just being snuff films. But this one offers a lot more, I think, and it's fun, not in an enjoyable way, but it's fun in the creativity that went into it.
Oh, yeah, and the effects are fantastic. And like you said, the makeup artist is great.
Yeah, he kills it. It makes the film. Everyone's great in it, especially Mari Somei. I can't understate that enough. She is just incredible.
Yeah, she's amazing.
To even go through all of this to make the film and like sell it the way she does.
And sitting in a bathtub of water the entire time. That had to get funky.
Especially once they have the blood and everything else in it.
Yeah.
As someone who's read a lot of Hideshi Hino stuff, I do think it is a great adaptation of his style and tone. A lot of his stuff does have this, like, where it's very graphic, but there is also, like, some big ideas kicking around in there. I do think the film has a lot of ideas and things out there that it's trying to say. Some of that could just be me, projecting ideas onto it.
Which is what good artwork should do.
Yes, it gives you that canvas to make those conclusions. So I love it, yeah, and I think it's a very somber film, and something about that tone and that mood just really gets to me in a way that's like, I'm like, yeah, I like this film, I'm into it. I'm really feeling what it's trying to do, and it's made me think about all these bigger questions, even though it is just this like 60-minute, pretty low budget gore film that mostly is just trying to like squick you out. But then I appreciate it that when you get done, you sit there and you think about it, you're kind of like, man, it's left me with some like thoughts and some feelings to work through.
Yeah.
So I actually give this one 5 stars.
5 stars?
Yeah, I'm heavy on it.
Wow.
I really like it. I would love if these all got like a Blu-ray, as much as you could upscale release.
Yeah, you don't want them to look too good, though.
Yeah.
Because then it would look more artificial, which, I don't know, that might add something to it. Who knows?
Yeah, but I really, really love it. I think it's super enjoyable. If you've always kind of stayed away from this series because you are worried about like how graphic and how just brutal it is, I think this is the one you can like. I mean, the other one, the Devil Doctor, that one is like a straight comedy almost, so it's kind of easy to get into too. But this one I think is the right mix of like, it has the extreme stuff that the series is known for, but there is enough of a story and a plot and an idea that can like pull you through if you're one to approach this for the first time.
I agree. If you're going to jump into a Guinea Pig film, it probably should be this one.
Yeah.
But know that it is gory if you have issues with disease and fluids and worms.
Yes.
Proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution. All right, well, that brings us to the end of another one. Again, kind of a short film, so there's a shorter walkthrough there, but I think we hit a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got one more week in this month. And
one more extreme horror film.
One more extreme horror film. We thought we would do for the listener episode, we would just go back to our bank of suggestions that we received. And so, in light of that, we are going to go with a much more modern film, just to kind of complete our tour, I guess, of extreme horror.
Yes.
And so we are going to go with the 2021 Taiwanese horror film, The Sadness, directed by Rob Jabaz.
Indeed.
This
got a lot of buzz, pretty popular.
A lot of buzz, a festival darling last year, everywhere it turned up. Ostensibly an outbreak / zombie / rage virus.
Infected, yeah.
So this is very new, very off the top. It's on Shudder.
It's on Shudder.
So you can easily get at it and watch it for yourself. We'll get into it in that episode, but definite trigger warning on this. There is a lot of sexual violence going on.
Yeah.
So know, as we always say, know your limits, know what you're cool with watching, tread with a little caution when you go in on it.
Yes. Consider yourselves warned.
Yes. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Keep writing to us. Let us know what you've been watching. Let us know what you've been enjoying this October for Halloween times.
We know you're all watching horror movies.
Yeah, we wanna put stuff on our list to watch we maybe haven't got to yet.
Yeah.
Keep sending us movie recommendations to check out for these listener episodes because we love doing them. Generally, consistently, all the ones we've done have been great. I think our listeners have amazing taste.
They do.
It's the one thing I've learned doing this that's really impressed me. So keep doing that. Keep being awesome.
Absolutely.
You can hit us up on all the social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're over on YouTube. We just kind of mirror the episodes there, but hey, you can leave a comment. We won't bite.
Give us a thumbs up. Smash that like button.
Ring the bell. Yeah, hit us up at genreexposure@gmail.com.
Yeah, send us a missive.
We love it all, and we appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
So,
you guys take care and have a good Halloween.
yes, take care.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.